I'm Joe Walker at Def Digits Guitar Lessons, and I'm doing a live lesson right now for my student Connor, who I'm going to recommend that he learn this simple riff by AC/DC. The riff on T.N.T, the main verse riff goes like this. So I'm going to teach it to you in a kind of a simple manner first, and then we'll build up to make it a little bit more complex so it sounds more rock and roll. And I'm doing it on my hollow body jazz right now just to demonstrate that it still sounds like rock and roll no matter what you play it on. I've got my Les Paul over here. I could do it on that, but it's tuned down and this was just easier to grab. So let's do it in like a one string, just root note version first. So we're going to go all on the open E string. We're going to go open 3 5 3 5 3 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 open. So make sure you can play that along with me like that. And each of these steps, as I make it more complex, just pause the video if you need to and just make sure you can play along with each step. Next, we're going to move that note that was on fret 5 to the open A string, right there. Thank you. So now your pick has to switch strings when you were going 3 5 3 like that. Now we're going 3 on the low E string to the open A string, and then back down to 3 like that. So it's going open E, 3, and then open A, 3, open A, 3, and then back down to open E. So keep the same rhythm and the same sound of the riff, but now you have to reconfigure where your fingers are going. And when you go to that 3rd fret, use your 2nd finger there, because that's going to dictate. It's going to be part of a G chord at one point as we build things up. So it's going to go. Now we'll build it up one more step. We're going to take the 2 open strings, the open E, and make a power chord out of it. So now we get that, just a 2-note power chord. When you do an open power chord, the best way to do it usually is going to be you get your 2 notes, open, low E in this case, 2nd fret on the next string, and then everything else should be muted like that. And that's all being done by the back of this finger. You're just pressing down with your fingertip right there on the A string, and everything else, you're still touching all of those strings like that. So you lay it flat and you just press down on the tip like that. And you don't need to be like double jointed where you can bend just this last knuckle. I can't do that, and that's not really what I'm doing here. You can see both of these knuckles are still sort of bent. But I'm just putting pressure on the A string only, and then everything else is muted. So we get open, 2nd fret, mute, 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 like that. That's for an open power chord. So that's going to happen on that low E string. Then when we do it on the A string, it needs to happen there too. But here it's best to have your thumb over the top to mute the low E string. So now we get muted low E, open A, 2nd fret, and then mute, mute, mute for the last 3 strings. And when you strum this for real, you're not going to be strumming through all the strings unless you're really rocking out. So you want to make sure that those extra strings are muted in your left hand, but you're not really going to be plowing through them all the time. Like all of that, I'm probably targeting the lowest 3 strings and not really doing all of them. So now it becomes this. It sounds a lot more like the real thing. So your low note turns into this low power chord. We're still leaving that note right there on the 3rd fret just by itself. Play that one by itself. And then you've got your A power chord. And then 3rd fret, A power chord, 3rd fret, and then back down to open like that. So now we get this. See if you can play this along with me with power chords on the open E and the open A like that. 1, 2, 3, 4. Next, the last thing we want to do is take the first time we go to that third fret and make it a G chord with your left hand, but with your right hand, we're not going to strum through the whole thing. If you've ever heard T.N.T, you know that this is not in the middle of that riff. We're just going to get the low few strings. If you play it pretty much the same way you were playing it, but you just let your pick travel through a couple strings. It's like instead of picking that one note, you let your pick be a little messy and get a couple notes. That's what we want the first time we hit that third fret. When we come back to it later, when we're doing this, there's no time for a whole G chord there. We're just going back and forth between the A power chord and that G note down here. It's just going to be a note by itself. So really slowly, I'll show you what's going on. Open E power chord. Next move is G chord, but you're just going to plow through the low few notes. That's it. Then A power chord, then G note by itself, A power chord, G note, that's it. There you have it, the riff from T.N.T. Kind of an easy power chord riff to add, where it's not all of like these kind of power chords where you have to move them all around the neck. It's just getting used to those open power chords. It's a nice first step going from open chords like G and A and E into using smaller versions of those open chords, just like power chords like this, the E and the A. Let me know in the comments if you have any questions or comments or anything like that, and I will see you next time. Thank you.